Thanks for connecting today. I'm curious, where is everyone connecting from? So if you want to share, I can start. I'm connecting from Atlanta. We have here North Carolina, South Carolina, Jeff from New York, Brittany, Alabama. Wow. Folks from everywhere. Awesome. Awesome. Very cool. So I'll ask the jurors also to share where they're connecting from.
Hi, I can start. I'm
Yeah.
Morgan, and I'm connecting from Brooklyn in New York.
Awesome.
I'll go next. What's up, everyone? I'm Jeff. I'm coming in from just north of Boston.
I'll jump in. Hey, I'm Kalina. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Hi, I'm Yako. I'm connected from São Paulo, Brazil.
Hello, everyone. Dan here, and I'm connecting from just outside Boston.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining. I also am very glad that all the jurors from the 365 competitions were able to join. So I'm glad that we have the whole team together. I wanted to start this conversation asking the jurors to introduce themselves. So a little bit of their work, what's their background, what they have studied so far, and why are they interested in being a juror this year at this competition. Maybe I'll let Dan as the chair to start, please.
Thank you so much, Julia, and thank you all for attending today. My name is Dan Vallajos. I am currently serving as president of the AIGA Boston chapter, and I'm also a senior lecturer at Bentley University, where I teach in the Film and Media Studies lab. I had the wonderful opportunity last year around this time to serve on the jury, the 365 jury underneath Abbott Miller. And it was a wonderful learning opportunity. And I'm just grateful to be able to extend that kind of discourse and dialogue to this year's jury. I think we had a real kind of plural sensibility of how we reviewed and critiqued the work. And thus far, I can tell you, it looks like we have an all-star crew this year, and I'm really looking forward to working with these folks. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Dan. Who wants to jump next?
I'll go next. Hey guys, I'm Jeff. For the past 6 years of my career, I was in advertising. I worked for an advertising firm based in Boston, doing mostly digital ads and paid and organic social content for all kinds of brands. I was always doing more brand design on the side, freelance, and eventually knew that was what I wanted to do full time. And this was either this month or last month. I actually celebrated my first full time year of doing my own, mostly solo run, but now getting some more contractors involved. Brand studio called Planet People Studio, and I also about a year ago now as well started making a lot of Instagram content and have built up a small following over on Instagram, where I do a lot of educational videos and just showing my process and stuff like that. And I think when I think about this competition and seeing people's work, making content and really being invested in the design community really globally, and especially online, I've seen so much passion and so many people reach out to me, and it's been a really awesome thing to see, just I don't know, people getting creative and excited about all different facets of design. So I'm really excited to see more of that through this competition.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Who's next?
I'll go next.
Yeah,
My name's
thanks.
Morgan. I'm a design director at Collins here in Brooklyn. I have been working at Collins for the past 4 years now, so it's been a minute. And I always joke that this has just been like my graduate program, my graduate degree in learning brand and being able to work with some of the most talented folks in the entire world. So I'm super excited, like Dan said, echo the sentiment to learn from everybody in this jury, but also just from all of these submissions and to be able to be a student and have conversation about the role of design in these projects together. So,
Awesome. Thank you, Morgan.
yeah.
I can go next. So my name is Jaco. As I said, I'm a Brazilian designer. I have a Finnish name, but I'm a Brazilian designer. And my background is industrial designer. I graduated in industrial design 25 years ago, so I'm a long time ago. And most of my career was working design electronics, home appliances, etc. And now I shifted my career. Half of my career, last half of my career, I'm working more strategic design. It focuses on digital transformation, so focus on digital design right now. And today I'm part of a venture builder in Brazil. So we are working to build different startups on intersection of use of big data and artificial intelligence. We've been working a while in this field. But before that, I work different companies from Fjord in Latam. Was the head of Fjord in Latam. I work at Whirlpool, so some international companies, and I also have my company during that time. And I don't know. So thank you for the invitation. I'm very excited. I love to be part of when I have the opportunity to be part of a jury, because it's good to see what the people are doing all around in terms about design. And I'm very passionate about design. I'm very passionate how you can use design as a force to transform ideas and transform and impact the others. So I know I'm curious to see what I'm gonna have contact with the work. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jakob. Thanks for sharing. Kalina?
Hey, yeah, I'm Kalina Sells. I'm a designer, I'm an educator, and department chair at Tennessee State University, which is in Nashville, Tennessee. TSU is an HBCU, so it's a historically black college and university. And so most of my job is like facilitating students through studio and design courses and helping them to sort of navigate their careers in art and design. My personal work is centered around sort of challenging the design canon to be more inclusive of like historically marginalized voices. So that's what I'm really interested in and passionate about. I've recently published a book centered People and Ideas, Diversifying Design, and then another book in 2021, Extra Bold, was co-author on that. And so I do some design writing and research, and just love to sort of think about design history. And so I'm excited to be a juror because I think about like how design has the power to shape narratives and redefine sort of like cultural norms. And so I'm excited to see the work. And I'm just a design nerd also, so I think it's exciting to just see the work that's out there. So thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I also want to make sure everybody at home knows that they can share the questions in the chat, and we'll ask them the questions as we move forward. So feel free to ask anything related to the competition, but also things that you want to know their opinion and their perceptions about their design practice. So I'll start with the questions, and then any of the jurors or all of them can answer however you want. what are the qualities that you think makes a design submission truly stand out to you? So in a more general point of view, not considering one category itself. So regardless the category, what is a design submission that calls your attention?
Julie, could I start?
Yeah, sure.
Um, well, maybe I was thinking I'd share a couple of the common conversations and perspectives that occurred during last year's deliberations. There were a few things that stood out to me. Um, One of them was just this notion of surprise and delight. Um, of course, we work in a field that we see a lot of trends, and over time, within those trends, there's this notion of sameness. The things that I think jumped out to the jury last year were maybe sometimes things that exemplified that sameness, but more often were things that did not. And that I'm sort of laughing to myself here because when you initially saw the work, it was this question of like, well, initially, like, what is this? Like when you looked at it, it was just sort of different or new or pushing uh, at a certain boundary, either aesthetically or contextually or otherwise. And maybe on that last point, I think there were some conversations that centered around context. So not just what the work looked like, but we would read the descriptions, try to understand the intent, see if what it's doing or saying what it's doing was actually doing. Not so much in terms of looking for evidence, but just understanding the capacity for the work as well. So those were a few things that at least I can carry forward from last year and share, but I'd love to hear what other folks would like to add.
I think just to point, I think to Dan's point, I think it's interesting to see what you said, the intention behind and what they actually executed as a project. So I think that's a beautiful conversation and reflection that the jurors will go through in each submission. That's a great point. Yeah.
Dan, I just have to echo. I think my favorite things that I've ever seen all time are the things that make you say, "What is that? Like, what on earth am I looking at right now?" So I'm just really excited to see some of those submissions come through. It's always fun to see someone do something groundbreaking that hasn't been done before.
And I'll kind of echo too. Like I think some of that for me comes down to like the thought, but like not just the intent, but like the thoughtfulness behind the work. Sometimes I get really invested in like, oh, I want to understand what the decision making processes were behind and like why these choices. And I think some of that thoughtfulness like makes its way into like physicality in the different work. So I think I'll be really excited to kind of see some of those stories and like how they manifest themselves.
Sounds great. Yeah. Any other points to add?
No, I think it's the same that I think we're very in line with it. For me, the thing that's more strong is really to understand why someone trying to do so the intention and also the execution, the balance between intention and execution. So meaning if your intent was to be funny, so your execution somehow had to be funny, and etc. 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 So this balance is sometimes not so clear to see. But it cannot be so obvious. So you have, I like to have, you have to think 2-3 layers depth in terms to understand the intention. But you cannot be too obvious, but also you cannot be so. You have to be clear at the same time. So I think that's the balance, and that's what I'm expecting to see.
That's good.
I'll say real quick, since everyone said,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, I don't want to. I mean, I think everyone's kind of already nailed it. I think I'm just going to add like challenging like aesthetic norms is really interesting too, which is very similar to I think what others have said. But it's just like, how are you doing something in a different way, and sort of making someone look at that category in a different way. So pushing the limits of what's expected, I think is really always fun to see and exciting to see. So.
Yeah, great. Okay, we have one question here. Marcy asked, what types of projects can be submitted? I think, Marcy, there we have 18 categories where you can choose your project that it might fit more than one category, then you just choose one of them. I did send the link here with the list of the categories and the description of each of them. If any of the applicants have any questions in regards to like what is the category that most fit with my project, I'm happy to also think this through. I have shared some thoughts with some other applicants this past week. But also the good thing is that if you choose a category and the jurors understand that there is another category that fit best your project, we're moving them around and analyzing your project in another category. So yeah, don't overthink too much about this, because we can also be flexible when judging your projects. So in regards of environmental graphic design submissions, what types of projects do you see the most or least often? I don't know if you remember Dan from last year, specifically on this category that you want to share, because Dan is the second year that he's been a juror for this competition. So if you remember any specific projects.
I do remember at least a few.
Okay.
And within this category, there were a few that I remember we spent some time discussing related to like tactile signage. There was at least one submission that I know we discussed in that category, and then several that impressed us that were in this category and others that were environmental graphics, or even as a category of that, I would call them super graphics. And that was really interesting to see some of them coming out of architecture firms or environmental graphic design firms, and even smaller studios that we thought there was some interesting work there. Yeah.
Great. Cool. Okay, so one more question to the jury teams. What is a trend or multiple trends that you have observed in the design discipline worldwide in the past few years, and where do you think this is headed? Jeff, you're like nodding it. You have
I'll
thoughts?
jump. Yeah, I think the obvious answer here is usually like AI in these things, but I actually love almost like the antithesis of that, where I've noticed, and this I do a lot of this myself, is like almost the intentional infusion of the human hand and like organicness behind things. And I I have to imagine it's probably in some way a reaction to our overly digitalized world these days, that uh, there seems to be like a new championing of uh, humans making things with their hands in a way that we hadn't, I think, for a little while there. And so I'm kind of here for it, like I said, and I love infusing that into my own work a lot, and I hope that it continues. Obviously, there's a big digital side to what we do too, and obviously AI is a huge thing that maybe somebody else will talk about as well. But I think both can coexist. But I love the human integration into things.
I'll add, like, I feel like I've noticed, and probably because of just like the space that I work within and sort of my research interest, but I have noticed more designers embracing cultural aesthetics and maximalism in their work, which I love, and sort of pushing against or not even not rejecting Swiss design, but sort of just like creating alternative designs. And that's been really exciting. I think about Shantanu Suman, who's an Indian designer, and he did a beautiful documentary about Indian truck art, and I think about sort of that sort of aesthetic and maximalism and that sort of thing. I've seen more of that recently, and I think it's just about a growing like awareness of design's role in like shaping identity and belonging, and folks wanting to embrace that and sort of lean into that a bit more. So that's exciting, and I'd love to see more of that.
Cool.
I love that. Outside of the formal things that we've seen, and Jeff, like you mentioned, like AI is definitely something we could talk about. I think that there have been more designers thinking about things more holistically. Like if they're showing language on a poster, what exactly does it say? Or can the poster move? Can it animate? Can you walk into it? And so I'm anticipating that that might be something we see even more, is like, it's not just what you think it might be. You can always go a step further. And I think designers have done an incredible job of like pushing even further and blowing stuff up more and making us all ask that question of like, what is this? What am I looking at? Even more often by, taking it to the next level, and really considering all sides of it, even just what form factor might be, or what it has to have or has to say. So that's an overall sort of trend, but also just way of thinking that I think people are developing with these new tools that are coming up.
One thing just to add is, I think one thing that I think there's somehow we're trying to become to embrace functionalism again. So, but in terms about inclusion and diversity, I think that's a way that we can explore and see in the future. So I'm hoping actually. So to an example, talk about branding, for example. 10 years ago, more or less, for the Olympic Games in Brazil, an agency here developed a logo that was thinking to be 3D, so the blind people can touch the logo and see the logo with the hands. Last week, I saw a consultancy here from São Paulo. They are focused on inclusion and people with disabilities. So they also created the same idea of all the branding to be with multidimensional branding in terms of, and the video they share in LinkedIn was a blind person touch the visuals and describing what she's seeing with her hand. So I mean, okay, I can see the logo that people create for me with my hands, so I can see two different layers, etc., etc. I can see the words, I can see this is just touching the hand. So I think the one I'm trying to give an example, so really to push those kind of boundaries in terms about to really be inclusive in terms about what we are designing, be more responsible in what we are designing, what we are putting in the world in terms about impact, social inclusion, etc., etc. I think that's something that gonna have. I'm not sure that I'm gonna take the same space that's kind of subject needs, but for sure that's something that we needed to pay attention, and being creative as ourselves, we have to pay some time more attention what we're creating, put in a word in terms about that. So I'm gonna say about trends, that's something I've been thinking about and try to and pushing somehow.
That's great. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Just to Jeff's point earlier, we and Lishan also shared on the chat. So everybody, you should know that now we have two new categories in this year's competition, and one of them is sustainable design. The other one is AI-driven design. So, per his point, in terms of trends, we now have a category that we are analyzing and judging the work done in this field. We have another question. So, Kat, is there a way to categorize or judge large corporate branding projects separately from smaller clients? So much of our work entails massive consensus building, global trademark constraints, and multiple stakeholders. And it's frustrating to have it judged against work that has a less corporate strength not an excuse to the work that to be less creative, but or surprising, but the fact that you have to manage to push on the work through many hurdles. Kat, unfortunately, no, we don't have like a subcategory or another cluster that would separate it for like large or smaller clients. But we do have some categories that might fit very precisely to your work, I think, which is corporate communications and also brand and identity systems. So if you would like to discuss like what is the category that would fit the most to your project, also let me know. We can also chat after this call through email. If not, if you have any other questions in regards of that, we can also address it now.
Can I jump in and say something?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
of course.
I would also, to Kat's question, like I think we do understand too, like, you know, that like in those, there are categories that do have those restrictions. I mean, you know, you're going to be working for large corporate clients, and the work is just going to be very different than maybe in, you know, I don't know, one of the other categories, like for social design or something. And so we know that in terms of like rule breaking or and that sort of thing, there's different expectations. And so I wouldn't worry about it. Like I think, you know, there may be categories where we're looking at more formal elements of design and like, you know, more classic kind of components of you know, design. I hate using the term good design, so but we might be looking at more formal sort of qualities, and then there might be other categories where we're looking at more like conceptual or craft or, you know, that sort of thing. And so I think the categories will sort of help to establish some of the parameters, you know, that we're using to sort of judge the work. So if you think it's good, I would definitely, you know, submit it and not be afraid of that.
Thanks, Kalina. Yeah, if anybody has anything else to add to this point, just jump in. It's your space. Jeff asked a question that is in the end, to the end of the chat, so I'll share it now so folks can have some time to think about it. He's asking, can we have some book recommendations, please? So if you want to have some time to think about books to share later in the end of the call, we'll come back to your question, Jeff. We'll leave some time for them to think. Okay, so since we don't have any questions in the chat yet, I'll move also to the next one I have prepared. So can you share a time you saw a project that completely changed your perception of what design can do?
Oh, could I share on this one, Julia?
Yes, please.
And I'm going to date myself here. But when I was an undergraduate design student in the 90s, I first caught wind of the work of Bruce Mao. And it was the first time I had seen someone, a graphic designer, Bruce Mau's from Canada originally, working on the scale of everything from books to buildings. And it just really changed my whole, you know, I was probably working on, you know, traditional then studio projects like brochures, posters, promotions, early websites at that point. But this really changed the whole paradigm of scale for me. And that was quite memorable. And it's something that I tried to myself try to embrace over my career in my own work.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Anyone else has? Yes?
It's
Morgan?
design, also slightly advertising, but worth mentioning. I think I was very young when this happened, but I remember the Dove campaign as being the first thing that I saw executed as something that wasn't just about graphic design and the placement of the logo, but rather the larger story and intent behind every decision, from art direction, imagery, cast, etc. So I think that was the first thing that maybe opened my eyes up to graphic design and, you know, tried to carry some of that sort of thoughtfulness into everything else that I've done. And more recently, I mean, so many cool things that have been done. Before I came to Collins, the SF Symphony project I thought was incredible, using typography and music together. And I mean, there's endless examples, but those are just two that come to mind.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm sharing on the chat the what I'm. I think it's the same agency. I'm not working. I'm not. I don't work in that agency, but I'm a huge fan of that agency. It's named Statue. They're from Rio, and that's one of their last job they created. They created a brand for Rio Carnival. So when you see the animation, I don't know who was in Rio Carnival, but you also can look on the YouTube some videos, some short videos about how is the mood on Carnival in Rio, and I think they captured that mood very well in terms about the graphics. Is very colorful, very cheerful. So in terms about the animations, you really have the sensation about enjoying and sharing. So that's one thing that I really love.
Great. It's good to have new reference. Thanks for sharing in the chat, Jaco. Anyone else adding any specific example of
I'll say I don't want to. I don't know if you were going to chime in or not, but I'll
if
say.
not, I think there. Yes,
Oh,
yes, please,
sorry.
Kalina.
Okay.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Some work that sort of changed perception of what design can be. Was that the question? Sort of.
Yes, yes.
I when I saw the work of the G's Ben quilters, they're not designers. They're not like trained as designers, but I mean they're quilt makers. But their work, when you look at it, like is pattern and form and and repetition and all those things. And so I think that's when I was like, what is design? And how do we what is the definition of design? Can it be a little bit more broad than what I think we sometimes think of it as? And so work like that, like this more like craft based, has been like heavily on my mind lately because I've just been rethinking how I've traditionally thought about what design is, and like I guess also who gets to be called a designer. And so yeah, that's what comes to mind.
And I'll just jump in with one too. I don't know. For me, like, it wasn't anything that was overwhelmingly like visually crazy, but more like the experience of it all. I don't know if everybody remembers like the first time Spotify did one of their Wrapped, and then like how those grew over the years. Like it was experiencing those, and at the time I was in, an agency office, and like everybody's going through it, and like it opened my eyes to the how communicating mostly just like data, uh, and they added some like cool animations and graphics and things, but just like the experience that they were able to create on your phone, in the palm of your hand, and what the reactions were and the camaraderie that people found through it and how excited everybody was. Like, I don't know, it felt like this sort of movement of people really appreciating music, and obviously it was done through a very like commercialized company, but I don't know, that was something that was like, this is a really cool way to see that like how design can really bring people together, globally in a really awesome way.
Very cool. It's a good example indeed. Cool. So there's a question that I think I might want to hear Dan's point of view based on last year's. So Nicole is saying there are not many guidelines around project description. Is this taken into consideration when judging submissions? What does the process for this look like? Is it visuals first and then messaging, or vice versa?
That's a great question. And kind of jogging my memory here, but just so folks know, like just what this process looks like a little bit, there's a bigger number of submissions that first come through, and then each juror is asked to rate those submissions. We see kind of the visuals and the description simultaneously. So, usually spend a few minutes reading through the description, going through the videos or images. And then, the initial pass is more like an initial rating. And then we get together as a group and we have a conversation about it. If you're thinking about what to put in the description, my advice is to focus, of course, on the W words to help us understand intent. Just who, what, where, when, why, and then I guess an H, how. And succinctly, right? Because there's quite a few for us to be able to get through. And if it's succinct and you can describe it cogently, um, and we see that connected in the work, that usually fares well.
Oh, thank you. I think also that's also more of a broad question now. If any advice on how to pitch to the company you work for, the project you want to enter in the competition. So would you have maybe another example of a moment where you had to pitch your project to your boss or someone in the leadership that this was worth it and something that you cared about?
I get
Last time, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jakob, please do.
No, I would just say that the last time I had to pitch my former boss to enter in design contest, I just did it. I told them later before that we won the prize. So what was it? What I did, I sat with my team and in terms about budget, what I can shift to one side to another, take the budgets, make the entrance, just send the work, and then after you won, luckily, I say, okay, just you won 2 prizes in design, just that.
Okay, nice. Very how to hack the system. Good tip, Jacob. Um, I'm also like specifically curious if you have any of the categories from this year's competition that you're most excited to judge, and I can share them here in the chat to be a little to help everyone. These are so brand identity systems, civic design, corporate communications, editorial design, entertainment design, environmental experiential design, experience product service system design, illustration, photography, information design, data visualization, immersive design, motion graphics, package, promotional and advertising, social design, typography, inclusive, AI driven, and sustainable. Do you have any category specifically that you're most excited to judge and why?
Can I just add one real quick?
Yeah.
One of the 2 new categories around sustainability, I think is quite brilliant. And I have to admit, Jeff, not to put you on the spot, this is one of the reasons why I thought Jeff would be a great addition to this year's jury, to have a designer like Jeff who really at the outset founded and named his studio in a way that reflects this sensibility, I think is great. And my sense is graphic design, communication design, UX, etc. We're a little behind in my in my opinion, compared to, let's say, like architecture, which has, for years had the lead rating system and other ways that they're more directly addressing issues of sustainability. So yeah, I'm excited for that category, and I don't know, Jeff, like maybe you have more to say about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I obviously echo uh, everything you said, and I think, yeah, for me, it's like, obviously, like Dan mentioned, a big part of the studio that I'm building is centered around this idea of sustainable design, and it's a huge umbrella, and it touches almost every vertical, and it's just a really I'm more in the camp of like, rather than it can be pretty commonplace to be like upset about climate stats and stuff, but I love seeing all of the solutions that so many people are being creative with coming up with. And even just something as simple, I think a good crossover with what Dan was mentioning in architecture is obviously they're looking a lot at materials, and I think in something like the packaging world, there's been a lot of really exciting movements to get more sustainably created uh, materials for packaging, and it's also opened up new ways to get creative and sort of poses new challenges that kind of gives you more opportunities with certain materials maybe you didn't have opportunities with before. So I think it's all kind of an encompassing thing that is exciting to continue to develop because I think it's goes without saying it's pretty important. So yeah, I'm excited to see, and hopefully, I'm sure I'll be super inspired by the things that come through in that category.
Awesome. What about the others? Yes, Morgan?
I was just going to say, I echo that. As someone who has a real shopping addiction, in part because of how great packaging has gotten, I'm excited to look at it. And I mean, packaging's always been amazing, but I just feel like it's continued to get more inspiring in some ways, especially with sustainability. So that's something I'm personally excited about. And then excited about this like new world of AI driven design. I don't know where that's going to take us or what that's going to mean, but I think it's an interesting moment to be a juror and to have discourse about that kind of work. So that's also something I'm super excited about.
Okay, cool.
I'm curious, a lot of them. So the number 7, because that's my core activity. So that I'm curious to see what's out of there. So the number 9, because a lot of startups that we're helping here in the builder, they needed this kind of data visualization. So I'm curious to see what people are doing all around. The last 3, so 16, 17, and 18. So 17, because a lot of work I'm doing also, I'm doing using design, AI to design, and also designing to AI. So we're doing both, so in both ways, so understand. And the 16, 18, because last year or the year before, I don't remember exactly, was part of the jury in Brazil in a category that was inclusion and sustainability, and the quality of the work that I see in that time, for me was too distant what I'm expecting. So I'm curious to see how the design community evolved in the last 2 years, especially what people are doing abroad, because I have a taste here, more or less what people are doing here in Brazil. So I'm curious to see what people abroad. So I'm pretty curious to see everything. So.
Awesome.
I'll jump in and say I'm really interested, obviously, in like inclusive and accessible design, but also really the civic design category will. I think that will be really interesting. There's a lot going on in the world, and so just thinking about um, how folks will approach, get out the vote posters, or designs around the election and that sort of thing. I think it would be really interesting. I guess my mind is thinking like there's a certain sort of level of neutrality that is a challenge in that category, and so that will be interesting to see how that is sort of approached. But there's several other categories as well that I think will probably yield some good results. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. Harry has asked here a fun one. So what's the design rule you guys love to break?
I can jump in first. I think so. This isn't necessarily a recommendation to always do this because it's not good for accessibility. But I like playing with like contrast and legibility sometimes, and maybe like just pushing it past the point where you're like, it's not it's not the best contrast, it's not the most legible, but like there's something kind of cool about it anyway. And like I said, depending on the client or whatever it is, like accessibility is obviously very important. But if you're ever able to kind of get away with something that has less contrast or isn't quite as legible, I don't know why. I kind of like stuff like that for some reason. Maybe because it reminds me of old things that have like faded away and like been sun bleached or something like that. And I love looking at old things, but yeah, that's one that I'll always try to push my boundaries on a little bit.
I can add because I love to break all the sacred rules of design. So Gestalt, Fibonacci, ratio, diamond process design, whatever. So just give me a framework. I love to question the framework. Empathy map, just give something. So I love to break all of them. So that's me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Break it all until it's interesting. If you start from a place of rules and you only adhere to the rules, then you're not going to get that wild thing. So break it all.
Awesome. If anybody has any other rule that they like to break, if not, we can. Yes.
Just grids in general. Like, I think it's fun to, I mean, yeah, just not completely do away with the grid, but sort of challenge what type of grid to use, and sort of create a new, sort of thing. So that's what I've been actually trying to intentionally challenge myself to do. And because I'm teaching, a lot of times my designs are like presentation slides and that sort of thing. And so I have to think about that more often than I think. It's funny how often we sort of revert back to like factory settings on our design brain. Just like flush left. So it's like trying to push past that sometimes very intentionally is what I'm working on. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just want to plus one what Kalina just said, especially with the teaching. Um, for years, I have my students do this project around Wired magazine, and I have them read some stuff by some of the former design directors at Wired, and one of the former design directors uses this term with the team or phrase "wrong theory." Like, if something's not slightly off, it's not right, which is a great kind of way to encourage designers to, like everyone's saying, maybe embrace mistakes, see the humanity in the work, kind of embrace the craft, et cetera. And I would say especially now with AI and other things that like can almost be too perfect. Like, yeah, that notion of like, something's just off, but in a good way, like could be an interesting thing to consider.
Awesome. Okay, we have one question just to answer, which is about the like what's a book recommendation, and I have another one to add and, and let you guys think a little bit about them. So as a designer, where do you go for inspiration? So I'll let you think a little bit while I share my screen with some information. Um, so for everyone in the call today, we are now sharing a promo code that you can get a discount once you apply for the 365 competition. So the code is 365 webinar. And I also want to make sure everybody has our contact, so competitions@aiga.org, if you need any help thinking how to submit your project or what category fits the most, or any specifics about the rules, let us know, get in touch, and we can talk this through. And again, promo code 365 webinar for you guys to have a discount on your competition entry. Now I'll go back to hear the jurors' answers, and we can soon wrap up. We're almost on time. So I want to hear Where do you go for inspiration, and a book that you recommend?
I can go first.
Yeah.
When I need inspiration, I try to obviously get outside of my computer because this is a hole that I fall into all the time. Living in New York, I feel really lucky because I can just step outside. But when I'm not able to do that, I love to watch architecture videos on YouTube. Some amazing series on there. And just thinking about how people approach design outside of just like flat graphic design is always interesting to me as someone who does primarily brand design. And then my book recommendation is very pointed and specific, but History of Graphic Design. I think it's something I look through before every single project to try to hone in on an era or a time that feels maybe in line or in contrast to a project I'm working on. So I'd go back to textbooks a lot, and I think it's a great one to start with.
Cool. Thanks, Morgan.
I'll uh, I'll echo Morgan's sentiment about architecture and mention I really like the local project, and they even have like they have YouTube videos and they also have some books that you can pick up, and they have some awesome stuff. A lot of their things are centered around sustainability as well, which is cool. Um, and then I often go to like the grocery store for inspiration. Again, I do a lot of brand design and packaging and stuff as well. So sometimes like, and you can't see it here, but I have like cans and my wife calls it trash, but I have like cans and bags and things like all around me in here as inspiration. So I love picking things up and kind of looking at them in person. You don't really get that on a screen. And then a book for anybody who wants to or is interested in doing freelance or starting their own business. This is from Jen and Amy Hood, the owners of Chutzpah, Freelance Business and Stuff. And this is a really good read for anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about the business stuff.
Awesome. Cool.
I will be super nerdy and say that I draw inspiration from like literature and theory. And again, my world is a little small right now. I'm in a doctoral program as well, and so I'm sort of reading a lot and writing a lot. And but folks like Bell Hooks and Stuart Hall and Paulo Freire, those are like theorists and people who just think about like the way societies function, and like that's really inspiring to me, and I draw a lot of connection to design through their writing. And so book recommendations, I have so many book recommendations. I was looking back here, but I would say just to um, Ruben Pater, I think I'm pronouncing the last name right, I don't know, but it's Caps Lock is a great book, and it's about how I think this I was looking for it. It's not here, but it's like how capitalism took over design or something like that. It's a great book. And then Bell Hooks has a book called All About Love, and it's not about like romance. It was about like justice and care, and I just think it's an excellent book. And so I think about design as well when I'm reading anything from Bell Hooks. So those are my recommendations.
I don't have a specific form of that I'm looking for inspiration, but since the thing that I'm designing is more systems and services and products, I like to observe people. Sometimes in a cafe, restaurant, etc. I'm just like to be watching people and see what they are doing, and it's curious how we get used to some stuff that doesn't work, but you get used to that, and you pretend that it's working. So I love to see this kind of scenario that is seen. So really understand why you're doing this. So most of this, and one book that I will recommend is this one, Super Minds. Super Minds is they are. I don't remember that it's a MIT professor or not, but MIT is using this concept as well. But basically, the concept say that connect is not people against the machine, but how we can create a super mind in terms about thinking, really resolving like wicked problems if connect machine and our mind. But what did I say that? Julia, for example, Julia is Julia. Julia have a lot of information, and Julia, when Julia connects to Yaku, we have more information. But when Julia connects with the virtual Julia, and the virtual Julia connects with virtual Yaku, that's exponential. So imagine that everybody here we are exchanging, but we also have our self in terms about virtual self, and those virtual selves also exchange the ideas and try to resolve the problems. So that's the concept more or less. I didn't finish. I read a paper about the book. Now I'm reading a book. So that's more or less where I'm right now in terms about this concept. But that's curious. And I saw a lecture about the guy who wrote this book as well. So he was explaining this. Now I'm going deep.
Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I
I
put
think we have Ben too. Yeah.
in the chat a little shout out for Emigre. They've got a wonderful compendium of their catalogs out, published by Letterform Archive.
Awesome. Well, we are on time. I want to thank all of you for joining today and sharing your perspectives on the competition, but also sharing your journey, your career. And thanks to everyone who participated as well, sharing the questions and being engaged. It was fun. So if you have any questions, reach out to us in competitions@aij.org. And I hope to see your submissions there. We have extended the deadline for April 14th, so we still have 2 weeks to go. So thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day and have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.